your screen and says, yep.
Time's up.
And it says leave meeting or got it. And just hit got it.
Yep.
Thanks, Kay.
Yep, we did. My screen now says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Excellent. Did you all hit the got it button?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. Lent in Plain Sight. I'm loving this book. So we will do today's reading, which for those who were there, we did dust, of course, the first week with it being Ash Wednesday. And then we did bread last week. So this week we do the cross. And I kind of felt a little weird about that being the object, because I had in my mind that the objects were kind of like common things we have around, and other than our jewelry or wall hangings or whatever, like we don't have a cross. But then I thought, well, we do wear our crosses, and we, so it is a common thing, but of course it's an execution method. So it just made me think of this bizarre how we use it as a decorative thing. I do, for jewelry and on my walls, but it's like if we put maybe the electric chair, a picture of the electric chair on our on our walls or whatever. I mean, this is how they crucified people, executed them. So I find it interesting that we kind of take for granted, or I take for granted, what the cross really means and meant. Our reading today comes from Mark 15, 16 to 24. So read it for us. Then the soldiers led him into the courtyard of the palace, that is the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole cohort. And they clothed him, Jesus, in a purple cloak, and after having twisted some thorns into a crown, they put it on him. And they began saluting him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They struck his head with a reed, spat upon him, and knelt down in homage to him. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him. They compelled a passerby. That's the key line for this one. They compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country to carry Jesus's cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. Then they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him, divided his clothes among them, casting lots to decide what each should take. So I'll read from Jill's reflections for us today. If somebody tries to come in, yell at me so I know to let them in to the group. So the highlighted verse, they compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country. The word compelled sanitizes what happened to Simon of Cyrene. Imagine the scene for a moment. Simon walking down the street, perhaps headed to work or home or to the market, and he hears a commotion. He looks around and sees Roman soldiers forcing a man bruised and battered down the road. The man bent over under the weight of a cross, wears a crown of thorns. Simon, coming from the country, knows the fate of the pitiful man, painful execution. Simon, no doubt, has passed by convicted criminals on crosses before and knows enough to stay out of the way of the Roman guard, unless compelled or forced to do otherwise. Could Simon have refused? Why did the soldiers compel a bystander to carry Jesus's cross? I always wondered if Simon's act was one of compassion or complicity. Is it possible that shouldering Jesus's cross part of the way could be both? 3 of the 4 gospel accounts of Jesus' passion record Simon of Cyrene bearing Jesus's cross. The recording of the details of Simon's name and location point to the importance of this act, compelled or not. The disciples fled. Jesus' closest followers did not follow him to the cross, despite his repeated command that anyone who wished to come after him must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow. Does that anyone now include Simon? Simon, willingly or not, gets swept up in God's salvation story, forever connected to the passion of Christ. Even Roman soldiers and passerby further God's plan when the disciples refused to participate. Even Roman soldiers and the passerby further God's plan when disciples refused to participate. I had to read that twice because it's so good. God's will to save the world cannot be denied. Disciples of Jesus can deny they know him repeatedly. The 12 then and the countless now may refuse to deny themselves and take up their crosses, choose to save their own lives rather than lose them for Christ's sake. Regardless, Jesus goes to the cross, forgives them anyway, and saves the world. Even those compelled into service, oblivious to the role they are playing or the one they are serving, all further the will of God who never gives up on the beloved creation. Simon of Cyrene, compelled passerby, embodies the power of God to use any of us, all of us, despite our ignorance or fear or reluctance. Some days our faith compels us to follow Jesus wherever he leads. Many days we run away and deny we ever knew Jesus. God's salvation story unfolds every day. God's salvation story unfolds every day. Our acts of compassion cannot be unwound from our complicity with sin and sinful systems. God uses them anyway. Our complicity with oppressors and oppression is not devoid of God's grace and mercy. Simon reminds us that the cross of Christ will be borne and the world redeemed by the one we try to follow, too often deny, and always seek to worship. Have any of you ever taken time to think about or remember any sermons or studies you've ever done about Simon of Cyrene?
I don't think so.
I'm looking at George.
Oh, you're looking at me. I don't recall ever giving a sermon about Simon in particular. Of course, every Easter I'd give sermons about.
Or what about a study?
A study.
Well, sermon too. Sure.
But I don't recall giving specifically about Simon. In a passion play, I have been Thomas before.
Doubting.
Yes, that's right. It was an inside joke at the church. They would always make the pastor be Thomas.
I love that. I love that. The questioning one. Perfect. Kay, did you have something to share?
No, I was just wondering, was he just chosen because he was at the right place at the right time? Or was there some meaning to it? And I don't know the answer, but
I don't know that anybody knows the answer to that. It seems random, and so are acts like this random? Are they God? I don't know. In other versions of the Bible, the story does not include the word compel. It actually says forced. So there are lots of other words for it. So forced, I don't know exactly what that means, like physically from the Roman soldier's side, but I can imagine if I was your everyday person and a Roman soldier told me to do something, I would probably do it. So it's not like you're going to say, oh, no, thanks. This guy next to me, he'll do it. Like, because that's just not how it works. So forced by intimidation of position, I guess, would be part of it. But I do know, and George, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do know that it was fairly common to have people help the person carry the cross, that was not an unknown thing or unusual. But it's significant that we know Simon's name, because as you know, not everybody has a name in the Bible. And we know where he's from. And so did everybody kind of know who he was?
I've heard some, Beverly and I have been listening to some of the documentaries about the beginnings of Christianity and Roman justice. I mean, crucifixions were common. So out of Roman cities to places where people do not want to go, okay, they would basically have these things stuck up. And the people who are crucified, they take the cross piece.
Crossbar.
The crossbar, not the whole cross, just the crossbar. And so you would think some people are strong enough to do it by themselves, but a lot of people probably couldn't.
Yeah.
So
and you're walking with, arms out because you're nailed to it. But yes, most pictures we see, like them carrying a cross, like a whole cross, but that's not how it was. It was just the crossbar because the vertical poles were already in place and they raised them up, as I understand it.
Yeah. It's a pretty gruesome form of Roman justice. And it was basically to show people that if you go against Rome, this is what happened.
Right. So Simon wasn't going to say, no, I no, thank you. He didn't want to be one of the people up there. I wouldn't either. So Jill has a couple questions. So I'll ask one. Imagine yourself as Simon of Cyrene. What are you thinking and feeling? How does the experience of carrying Jesus' cross change you? Put yourself in his shoes, kind of reflect on it from his perspective.
In my book, my commentary, it brings out the point that the fact that they had to have someone else carry Jesus's cross for him, it's an indication of how serious of a beating he took before he even picked up the cross to carry it through the city. I wouldn't want to be in that position. So I don't think if I were asked to do that for Jesus or whoever else they were having carry the cross through the city, I wouldn't want to be put in that position. I wouldn't want to have to take a beating to have to carry my own cross through. And the significance of the flogging that Jesus took, it just intensifies that I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in that position. So I'm going to do whatever they say, even if I have to be center stage and carry his cross for him.
Can you imagine like wrapping your arms around him, like to help bear that weight that's across? You're gonna get bloody. Like, if you want to be real about it, he's dripping in blood and sweat and tears, literally. And every place on his body hurts because of the lashings and everything. And you're trying to help him like lift up this crossbar so that he can walk. But even though he's kind of centered on it, he really can't hold the weight because he's just so severely injured that he just can't, which is why they have somebody help them. But I wondered if I was Simon, see, we know the end of the story, but they don't. So Jesus is just some rebel that's really caused a lot of ruckus, and Simon's gonna get all of his blood all over him and probably get spat on, because I'm sure people are spitting at him as he carries the cross or chastising him or whatever. I mean, I just can imagine it. So I imagine, wow, you're gonna help. If I was in Simon's shoes, I'd be grossed out by the blood. I'd be mortified by the weight of the cross, and I would probably hate the fact that I was going to be a target of rejection, even if it's like from the side, from somebody else. Like it's for Jesus they're spitting on, but Simon's going to get spit on.
Yeah, but like you said, we don't know the end of the story. So imagine what you would feel like after the end comes out and you realize, oh, that was Jesus that I did that for. And I took part in his crucifixion, and that would make me feel horrible.
What would make you feel horrible?
You know, if knowing how the story would end, and that I was the one that helped him carry his cross through the town, and, you know, I had to take part in that. That would just, it's almost like I was the one that murdered him or crucified him. You know, it's like in modern day age, like if you were the one who handed the person, you know, the gun and there was a bullet in it and they shot someone, you know, I would feel like I was the one that caused that person to be shot, because I'm the one that supplied that equipment for that, you know, for that crime or that injury to be caused. So, am I making sense?
That's a perspective I didn't think of. I think, you know, and it makes me think, I don't know if it's still done this way, but capital punishment, when it's done by lethal injection, aren't there like 3 injections and the people who do the injection don't even know which one contains? So, because I think that's probably because what you're saying, Heather, then you would know. I mean, it's already hard enough to know you're a part of it, I would imagine. So there's kind of, it's like kind of the psychological part of it.
Right. And firing
Simon's
squads
forced
were the
into
same
it.
way.
Yeah.
You know, they had blanks, so they didn't really know which bullet was the one that killed them, or, you know, everyone had a bullet, so they don't know which one is the one that actually caused the final blow.
I think to your point, Kay, I don't know what you think about this, but you're still a part of it, right? So I think Simon is the person in the Bible, that person in the crucifixion story that makes it real for us today. Because he's the everyday person pulled in. And
So did he know it was actually Jesus, or did he just know it was somebody?
he may have known as Jesus.
I mean,
Because,
do we really know that? I don't
but
know.
he doesn't know who even if he
Jesus
knows
is.
who Jesus is, Jesus wasn't the resurrected, you know, Lord and Savior of the world at that point. He was the trouble cause, you know, he caused a lot of trouble. And I, you know, I wonder if Jesus could speak. Like, he hardly says anything once he's up on the cross. I'm sure he's so weak and dying. But like, I wonder if Simon like said anything to him.
Well, he could have known Jesus. He may have heard him preach to the masses. You know, you don't know. But if he did know Jesus, he may not have wanted to carry it. He didn't want to go there for him to be crucified, but maybe it was the last thing that he could do that would help Jesus, to carry the burden of that part of the cross for him to ease the pain somewhat on his way, to die for us. I don't know. I mean, we don't know if he knew or not, but if he did, he may have been able to, lift some of the burden and care for Jesus along the route, not really, in his inside caring for him. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the two sides of the same coin with Heather's perspective on
Sure.
participating in it, and on the other side, doing the best you can with the situation to be helpful,
Right.
compelled or not.
I kind of went like the excuse me, the next several days, and the assumption that he did hear about the resurrection, in which case he's probably running around with an attitude of, so there, you dumb Romans, that you thought you were in control of this, and you're not in control. You just are in charge for a while. But with the compelling thing, isn't there something about when they ask you to go a mile, meaning ask, compel, to go a second mile when you're told to carry the Roman's cloak or whatever. So I suspect that grabbing a bystander to do work was a pretty well-known thing in the occupied areas. But what a horrible thing to be in that place at that moment, other than the fact that you were able to provide some solace to Christ.
Yeah.
In the lead up, I have a question because, I had to leave for the phone call. Did you touch on why Simon was in Jerusalem?
No.
No.
Well, with a name like Simon, you could probably assume that he's Jewish. So he had actually gone to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover, right? So here he is, he's here for a joyous Jewish celebration, and suddenly he gets pulled into this Roman execution of basically a good Jew. That's pretty awful.
It's, horrible. Horrible.
And again, that's an assumption, but with a name like Simon and from another place, perhaps we could assume that he was there for the Passover.
We always talk about, carrying, take up your cross and follow him. And it becomes just a phrase, like a catchphrase. I find it fascinating that Simon of Cyrene actually physically picked up Jesus's cross with him and carried it with him, to take on Jesus' burden, even not knowing the end of the story or the continuation thereof. Just, I don't know. I think I'd be awestruck. And like Paulette was saying, after Resurrection Day, would I be, if I were Simon, would I seek Jesus out and be like, I'm so sorry? Or would I be, what would you say? I think Paulette brings up a good thing. What would you say if post this, you're Simon and you bump into Jesus, the living Jesus, resurrected Jesus? What do you say?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. And I think that that's the feeling we're all supposed to have about the resurrection story, is that feeling of, I don't know what it is other than, oh my God, like literally, oh my God. Is that worship? Is it fear? Is it prayer? I don't know what it is, but it's that feeling of, wow, this is the resurrected Lord, and I was a part of his death.
Amy?
Yeah.
I was thinking as you were talking, could it be kind of a symbolism for how we're supposed to help others carry their burdens?
Mm.
To be Christ followers, I guess so. It's a lot. That's a lot to bear. Taking it to ourselves, as Heather did, I'll ask you the second question from that Jill writes in the book. In thinking about your own faith story, have there been times you willingly took up the cross in your own life and faith? Have there been times where you willingly took up the cross? Times when you were compelled to do so?
My short answer is yes.
What's your long answer?
Oh, we don't have enough time for that, Amy.
Gotcha.
Just let me put you on hold a second. I gotta lay a little one down.
Oh, I love the little babies. I couldn't think of one for myself. I think I'm too scared.
What came to my mind is a couple of times at least when someone was being bullied, and I, did what I could to break that down, not physically, but like one time in junior high where the girls every week would, whisper to each other, okay, we're all going to wear skirts. And then the girl they didn't like, they'd tell her that everybody's going to wear dresses so that she'd feel bad when she came to school the next day. So since I wasn't going to play that game, but wasn't quite courageous enough to, wear a dress, I'd wear a jumper so that, and I'd just pass it off. It was the only thing that was clean, so I wasn't putting myself out there in a way that was hurting me at all, really. Just a little fear of it maybe, but I was able to make a difference a little for somebody else.
Sure. But not willing to get bloody, right?
Not too much, although there was some
It's hard.
small amount of risk, but
Yes.
that decide. And I do also remember, some of the times when they'd pick on me in meal times and stuff like that, but it was hardly enough to, even so.
Yeah.
I was, given the strength that I needed to deal with the good deed to be done.
Yeah. Doing good in the midst of evil or bad is a challenge enough, for sure. And I think I totally see where you're coming from, and that feeling of standing up for somebody, that like literally that anxiety that's in you. Imagine that like 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I don't know. Karen, Kay.
Karen's time. I've been talking.
I, for one, think you have to pray for discernment about when you should and when you shouldn't. Because in Jesus' own walk, remember, sometimes he would move on and avoid conflict
Mhm.
until until that last conflict when he overthrew the money changers and basically he threatened the religious establishment, the priest, and they sort of cooked up something with the Romans. So, but before that, he did practice discernment about it was not yet time.
Mm.
And so I think as followers, we have to pray for discernment.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
My wheels are turning. Are yours? We kind of touched on this last question of Jill's. We'll have Heather fill us in when she comes back. But this last question of Jill's says, could Simon have refused to carry Jesus' cross? And what difference does it make if he did or didn't have a choice? What difference does it make if he did or didn't have a choice? We can think on that. Heather, you want to tell us your long answer or a portion thereof? Unmute.
I kind of forgot the story, but I think in the one that reoccurs often in my life is where my kids are concerned. I kind of tend to take the brunt of things or the burden of circumstances, especially when they were younger.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, you don't want your kid to hurt. You'd rather hurt in their place. Yeah.
Well, and two, just as a single parent for a good portion of their lives, I tended to sacrifice what I wanted or needed for them. So in a way, that's picking up the burden and, for someone else.
Yes. Yes, that's an excellent perspective.
Another couple words from a verse, which sadly is demonstrates the strength of my strong Bible knowledge, was the thing about where does he say, do something and my burden is light?
Mhm.
I'd never put that in conjunction with what Simon was doing.
Yeah.
How did that get changed into a light burden from my human, perspective here?
Yes. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Something like
Yeah.
that. I don't know. I never understood it except that as Simon was helping carry the burden, it makes the burden lighter because you're not the only one holding it. But lighter and being light are two different things.
Yeah.
Mhm. So let's say Simon had a choice. We'll finish out with this. Let's say Simon literally did have a choice. He could say yes or no with zero consequences from the Roman authorities to carry the cross or not. Okay. What would be his response then? Like, what would be the reasoning for carrying
Come
it
in.
versus not carrying it? Because I really do think being forced to do it it's under threat of your own life. You save your own life by helping because that's what you're forced to do. But if you're not forced to do it, do you do it?
I think it depends on whether he actually knew who Jesus was and that which I'm not sure that he did. If he thought he was a bad person, maybe he wanted to do it. If he knew it was Jesus, could he have known that that's what needed to happen for Jesus to be resurrected?
Something to go along with that, Kay, kind of along the same lines is if what Jesus was doing on earth, like his giving the word and spreading the word and showing people how they should be living their lives, if that has any weight to it at all, he would have gone ahead and done it anyway. Helped carry the cross, because if he believed what Jesus was spreading, the word that he was spreading.
Like Jesus had told his disciples, though they didn't understand what was going to happen.
And they were all gone at this point.
Right.
Except for the women.
Except for the women. Of course, the women are they're gonna clean up the blood and mess, because that's what they do.
Women do.
They're much stronger in many ways.
His mom and his
And the other women.
and the other women.
Mary's.
Joanna, I think, maybe.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
If-
they weren't going to abandon him no matter what. They were just going to be
and
there.
Probably the Romans accepted that the families would follow them out to the terrible place and mourn and cry about it. If Simon was Jewish and it was a choice, by helping him, this bloody man, he would be unclean.
Yes.
And so if it's a choice, it's a compassionate choice, because that means he himself would have to go through the purification procedures. Also, because hanging on a tree is considered to be cursed, it's also an act of compassion if he chose to do it.
Sure. Yeah. I love that. I mean, I thought about being all bloody, but only in the context of how gross it is. But you're right. Like those rituals procedures that needed to be done. The Roman soldier was making this, let's say he is Jewish, making this man be a part of it, knowing he's going to have some. There's ramifications for Simon to be a part of it, beyond, or not beyond, but in addition to the obvious of we'll kill you if you don't. Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else have anything to share?
It's good to see Greta. Hey, Greta.
Hey, Greta,
Yeah.
and everyone.
Today's my day to take care of Jace, so I'm still in my bathrobe.
I
We're just
understand.
jealous. That's all. Just jealous.
6:30 a.m. comes early.
Ooh,
Yes.
I don't know that hour.
Greta, I'd live in my bathrobe if I could.
How you feeling today, Greta? Is tomorrow a big day for you?
Tomorrow
You
I
don't have
have
to answer in too much detail since it's
I
online.
have a video appointment with the oncologist at Johns Hopkins, so we'll know more tomorrow, kind of what the next steps are. So,
Okay.
so
Yes, the
that's all I
prayers
know.
continue.
That's all I know for now.
That's okay. Our knowledge is limited always.
Right.
Everybody wear your green tomorrow and think of Greta also. I'm going to end our time with Jill's prayer from her book, and then I'll just close out and we'll be finished for our time together. Let us pray. God of power and might, you work through us and often despite us. We turn from the suffering of Jesus and the suffering of others We fear for our lives and act in self-protective ways, neglecting those vulnerable and in danger. Forgive our unwillingness to lose our lives for Christ's sake. Make us willing servants of your will. And when we turn and run, by your grace, use us for your work anyway. Amen. Good to see you guys. I'll see you next
to see
week.
you all.
Bye.